Ukraine waited for Russian LNG exports, then wiped it out. Recent news confirm a Ukrainian strike has wiped out a major Russian LNG export terminal in the Sea of Azov. Let's understand why Ukraine waited for exports to begin, and why destroying this facility right now hits Russia far beyond the battlefield. The Black Sea was supposed to be the front line. The Sea of Azov, tucked behind the fortified chokehold of the Kerch Strait and surrounded by Russian-occupied territory, was supposed to be a sanctuary, a Russian lake, a safe harbor where Moscow could construct the economic engines of its future without fear of Ukrainian interference. For nearly 4 years of war, that assumption held true. The Azov coast was the logistical backyard of the invasion, a place where tankers docked in peace and gas terminals hummed with the quiet, lucrative work of energy export. That era of immunity ended in the early hours of December 5th. It ended not with a whimper, but with a thermal signature so massive it was detected by satellites 3 distinct times in the span of 40 seconds. It ended with the complete erasure of $650 million of specialized cryogenic infrastructure in a coordinated strike that naval historians are already calling the most sophisticated maritime drone operation of the 21st century. What happened at the Temryuk LNG terminal wasn't just an explosion. It was a message. It was a demonstration of a new doctrine of warfare where geography provides no safety and where heavy air defenses are rendered obsolete by cheap, networked, and terrifyingly precise autonomous systems. Ukraine didn't just attack a gas terminal. They dismantled the entire concept of a safe rear area. And they did it by waiting. They waited while the concrete poured. They waited while the specialized compressors were installed. They waited until the storage tanks were pressurized and the first major export shipments were scheduled to depart. They waited until the facility was at its absolute maximum economic value and maximum physical volatility. And then, in a window of just 18 minutes, they wiped it out. To understand the magnitude of this strike, we first have to understand the target. The facility in question wasn't just a fuel depot. It was a specialized transshipment terminal designed to bypass the restrictions plaguing Russia's Black Sea ports. With Novorossiysk constantly under threat, the Kremlin needed a protected outlet for liquefied petroleum gas and LNG exports, a critical lifeline for an economy strangled by sanctions. The Sea of Azov offered that protection. Shallow, enclosed, and guarded by the Kerch Bridge air defense network, it was the perfect place to build. The terminal was a marvel of modern engineering, capable of handling hundreds of thousands of tons of liquefied gas. It was ringed by layered defenses, Panzer S-1 systems on the perimeter, electronic warfare jammers set to maximum gain, and physical patrol boats sweeping the harbor entrance. On paper, it was impregnable. In reality, it was a sitting duck for a kind of warfare that Russian commanders had failed to anticipate. The operation, which Ukrainian intelligence has remained tight-lipped about until now, relied on a technological breakthrough that neutralizes Russia's primary advantage: electronic warfare. For years, Russia has used powerful jamming stations to sever the connection between Ukrainian drones and their Starlink operators. They blanket entire coastlines in radio noise, causing drones to fall out of the sky or drift aimlessly at sea. It was a brute force solution that worked until Ukraine changed the physics of the connection. The assault force that approached the Azov coast on December 5th didn't rely on radio waves. The 6 sea drones that slipped into the harbor weren't listening for a satellite signal. They were trailing thin, impossibly strong spools of fiber optic cable, unspooling kilometers of physical line that connected them to relay stations or larger motherships. This is the hardwired revolution. By physically tethering the drones, Ukrainian engineers created a weapon that cannot be jammed, cannot be spoofed, and cannot be intercepted by electronic countermeasures. A Russian electronic warfare operator looking at his screen would see nothing. No radio spike, no control signal, just the static of a quiet night. Meanwhile, 6 guided munitions were cutting through the water at 40 knots, immune to the invisible wall that was supposed to stop them. But the sea drones were just the delivery system. The brilliance of this operation lay in its multi-layer structure. The user notes hint at a complexity that rivals major naval landings. This wasn't just a surface attack. It was a synchronized air-sea envelopment. At 03:00 local time, the Russian radar operators at Temryuk began to scream. Their screens didn't light up with a single target, but with a swarm. 30 airborne munitions appeared almost simultaneously, approaching from 3 different vectors. These weren't high-altitude cruise missiles that could be easily tracked and engaged by long-range systems. These were low-flying, high-speed FPV drones, likely launched from the sea drones themselves or from sleeper cells operating within range. This is the concept of the unmanned surface vessel as a mobile launch platform. We have seen prototypes of this before, sea drones equipped with rails to launch air-to-air missiles or kamikaze drones. On December 5th, this concept graduated from prototype to lethal reality. The sea drones acted as motherships, creeping into the Azov basin and then releasing a swarm of 30 airborne attackers right on the doorstep of the target. The effect on the Russian air defense network was immediate and catastrophic. The Panzer systems, designed to track and engage a few targets at a time, were instantly saturated. The radar logic struggled to prioritize. Do you shoot the drone diving at the radar dish? Do you shoot the one heading for the fuel tank? Do you shoot the one loitering above the patrol boat? In the chaos of decision paralysis, the defense collapsed. The airborne swarm wasn't primarily intended to destroy the terminal itself. Its job was suppression. The first wave of FPVs slammed into the radar arrays and the command posts of the air defense batteries. In seconds, the eyes of the base were blinded. The second wave targeted the firefighting infrastructure. This is a detail that speaks to the cold, calculated nature of the planning. They didn't just want to start a fire. They wanted to ensure it couldn't be put out. Drones precision dived into the pump stations and the foam suppressant tanks, disabling the automated safety systems that are the only hope of stopping a gas fire. With the defenses blinded and the safety systems crippled, the stage was set for the main event. The 6 fiber optic sea drones had been loitering in the chaos, perhaps holding position near the harbor breakwater while the air battle raged overhead. Now, with the patrol boats distracted by the air raid and the shore batteries burning, they accelerated. The target selection was surgical. They didn't just ram the hull of a ship randomly. They targeted the transfer manifolds, the complex valving systems where the super-chilled liquid gas is pumped from the shore tanks onto the vessels. This is the most vulnerable point in the entire LNG infrastructure. It is where the pressure is highest and where a breach guarantees a leak. The first sea drone impact was recorded at 03:14. It struck the loading arm of the primary berth, instantly shattering the cryogenic piping. Liquefied gas, stored at hundreds of degrees below zero, poured out onto the seawater and the concrete dock. When LNG spills, it doesn't just sit there. It boils instantly upon contact with the warmer environment, expanding 600 times in volume and creating a massive, rolling white cloud of vapor. This vapor cloud is heavier than air. It hugs the ground, flowing like water, filling every depression, every trench, and every room it can reach. For a few terrifying minutes, there was likely no fire, just a growing, silent fog enveloping the terminal, mixing with the oxygen in the air to create a fuel-air mixture of apocalyptic potential. The second and third Sea drones didn't need to hit the tanks. They just needed to provide the spark. And they did. The ignition of a vapor cloud of that size is less like a fire and more like a thermobaric detonation. The air itself catches fire. The blast wave moves at supersonic speeds, shattering concrete and twisting steel like wet cardboard. The double-hulled storage tanks, built to withstand conventional impacts, were subjected to massive overpressure from the outside, while simultaneously being cooked by the intense heat. Safety valves failed. Emergency vents melted. The chain reaction that followed is what accounted for the $50 million price tag of the night. One by one, the storage tanks succumbed to the heat and ruptured. Each rupture added fresh fuel to the inferno, creating a firestorm that was visible from the Crimean Bridge, miles away. The Russian response was non-existent because there was nothing left to respond with. The firefighting systems had been destroyed in the opening minutes. The patrol boats were dealing with their own damage or retreating from the heat. The personnel had been forced into bunkers by the air swarm. The terminal was left to burn. Satellite imagery taken the next morning confirmed the total loss. The intricate lattice of pipes, pumps, and cryogenics was gone, replaced by a blackened crater and twisted wreckage. The tankers that had been scheduled to load were forced to turn back, their cargo capacity rendered useless because there was no infrastructure left to fill them. The Temryuk strike was not defined by its dollar value, but by the strategic assumptions it destroyed. While the reported $650 million loss is significant, it is survivable for a state economy. What is not survivable is the collapse of the idea that the Sea of Azov is a safe rear area. For most of the war, Russia treated its rear as inviolable, allowing it to concentrate air defenses on the front while stripping protection from ports, factories, and logistics hubs. The strike deep inside this presumed sanctuary shattered that logic and forced Moscow into an impossible choice: defend the front or defend the rear. But not both. Every air defense system pulled back to guard ports and terminals weakens Russian forces in Donetsk and Zaporizhzhia. Every electronic warfare unit protecting infrastructure is one less shield for artillery and armored units. This is the essence of Ukraine's shaping strategy: stretch Russian defenses until they lose coherence. By forcing Russia to defend everything, Ukraine ensures nothing is defended well. The technology used in the attack marks a turning point. Fiber optic drones signal the end of Russia's long-boasted electronic warfare dominance. Jamming systems like Pol-21 and Zytel are irrelevant against a weapon that communicates through a physical cable. These drones emit no radio signal, cannot be jammed, and cannot be triangulated. They are effectively invisible until impact, leaving Russian counter-drone teams blind and reactive. Equally striking is the logistics behind the operation. The Sea of Azov and the Kerch Strait are among the most heavily guarded waterways in the world. Successfully deploying sea drones there, either by infiltrating through the strait or launching from within the basin, reveals a catastrophic failure of Russian maritime security. It suggests Ukraine now possesses access and reach that renders the entire Azov and Black Sea coastline vulnerable. Ukraine's decision to wait until the terminal was fully operational amplified the damage. This was insurgent logic applied at the state level. Destroying a project under construction delays it. Destroying it on opening day annihilates sunk costs, future revenue, insurance viability, and investor confidence. Temryuk became a strategic trap. Nearly $1 billion of effort erased at the moment it was meant to pay off. The psychological effect is severe, signaling to planners and partners alike that no investment in Russia is secure. The coordinated use of 30 aerial drones and 6 sea drones highlights the maturation of Ukrainian swarm warfare. These were not improvised strikes, but combined, role-specific attacks designed to overwhelm defenses through saturation and confusion. This asymmetric model is devastating. Cheap, unmanned systems destroying assets worth hundreds of millions. The cost-exchange ratio relentlessly favors Ukraine. Economically, the strike tightens pressure on Russia's energy exports. With Europe largely closed, maritime routes to Asia and the global south are critical. By targeting loading terminals, Ukraine attacks the link between resources and global markets. Alternative ports are overcrowded, distant, or seasonally unusable. The Sea of Azov was the shortcut. Now it is a liability. Beyond the flames, the deeper lesson is doctrinal. Layered air defense failed not because it was penetrated, but because it was overwhelmed. Command systems could not process simultaneous threats from air and sea. The OODA loop collapsed under data saturation. By morning, the myth of the safe rear was gone. If this video helped you understand the bigger picture behind this strike, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next deep dive.